Hello, I'm Ellie Dowding.
And I'm Lee Coates. Together we are ESG Accord and the Accord Initiative.
No,
we're
we're
not.
not.
No, we're not. No, sorry. Okay, hang on. Let me start again. And I'm Lee Coates. Together we are in Accord and the Accord Initiative.
That was brilliant. I love that start. Okay, you're listening to Accord Talks, a podcast about sustainability and compliance and advice processes supporting the financial advice sector. We hope that you're all well. And a very big hello to 2026. And it's double digits for us for episode 10 of Accord Talks.
Hello to 2026 indeed, and hello to In Accord. As I've already demonstrated, it's still rather new. Very exciting to have updated our branding so it's ready for the new year. We'll be rolling out lots of 26 campaign details piece by piece over the coming months. What I will mention right now as just a teaser is the Client Preference Ready badge is nearly here. It's for advice firms that know their clients fully, and we cannot wait to start issuing the badge to firms as soon as we can. So to all our advisor listeners out there, please get in touch if you're keen to share with the public how your firm is client preference ready and demonstrates knowing their client fully.
Oh, it's such an exciting way to start the year.
And talking of exciting, we must mention at the top of the podcast an item of news that we had at the end of 2025, which was you, Ellie, being appointed to the FCA's Sustainable Finance Advisory Committee.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, it's definitely does rank as top exciting news for me. Yeah, it's fair to say that I am indeed very happy to have joined the FCA's Sustainable Finance Advisory Committee.
Now, what I love is that for most people, that committee might sound like a very serious room with very long list of regulatory papers. But I know for a technical compliance person such as you, with such an interest in how the regs work, particularly the consumer duty and sustainability regulations, actually all the regulations, this is a dream assignment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. I am loving it so far. So, for our listeners' benefit, the committee plays an important role in advising the FCA board on sustainable finance related issues. And that includes things like emerging trends and strategic developments, all in line with FCA objectives. So, it really is super exciting to be part of this. And I think most people who know me, and that includes our listeners now, you know already that I'm really passionate about how information moves through the distribution chain and how market participation actually works in practice, mostly because when those pieces function well, consumers get good outcomes and the whole system operates with more integrity. So I think being trusted to contribute to that sort of thinking at this level is really something that I personally consider to be quite a privilege. So yeah, if I start sounding even more enthusiastic than usual about disclosure frameworks, things like that, you're going to know why.
Yeah, it's a brilliant way to start 2026. Right. Okay. So shall we get started with today's main content?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So we've got two really great guests lined up covering what I think are brilliant topics to start the year with. Our first topic is climate-related product reporting in the context of useful information for advised clients. The second is a subject very close to my own heart, which is lifelong learning. Ellie, do you want to do a short intro for our first speaker?
Yeah, happy to. And I'm really excited for both our guests today. It's both with really great topics. So yeah, first up, I have to say, it is always an absolute pleasure to hear from James Dalby. James Dalby is a sustainable investment lead at Aviva Wealth, and he's joined us many times for events over the years. James has worked in investments for about 30 years. His specific focus is on sustainable investment, where he's responsible for delivering the task force for climate-related financial disclosures product reporting for about 400 funds that Aviva provides as an asset owner. Certainly not a small job. James's role spans multiple distribution channels, which in my opinion makes him even more interesting as it gives him exposure to both contract-based and trust-based business, including the Aviva Master Trust and all the different regulatory frameworks that apply.
Agree. It's always great to speak to James. So let's hear from him now. Over to you, James.
Well, firstly, thank you, Lee and Ellie, for inviting me onto the podcast. I've certainly enjoyed listening to earlier episodes of Accord Talks, so it's great to be here to share and provide some insight on a sustainability topic that I'm particularly close to. So I'm James Dalby. I'm one of the managers within Aviva Wealth's investment proposition and strategy team. But within that team, my specific focus is on sustainability related issues. And I have responsibility for delivering something that is often referred to as TCFD product reporting. So, what is TCFD product reporting? Well, look, let me give a bit of recent regulatory history. 4 years ago, in December 2021, the FCA issued policy statement PS 2124. It was titled Enhancing Climate Related Disclosures by Asset Managers, Life Insurers, and FCA Regulated Pension Providers. And in a nutshell, this policy statement requires that on an annual basis, providers deliver climate related data at both their own corporate level, so that's referred to as entity reporting, and at an individual fund level. And in the policy statement, that's referred to as product level reporting. Now, the requirements of the reporting were largely shaped by a group known as the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures. This is where the acronym TCFD comes from, of course. Okay, so given that regulatory context, let me talk a bit about individual reports, individual fund level reports. I mean, essentially, I view these reports as very much like a fund fact sheet, but a fact sheet that's focused solely on climate data. They are only produced once a year, and you, as advisors, and your customers should have some form of signposting to them. When in the policy statement, the FCA said that they must be located in a prominent place on the main website for the firm's business, while also being included or cross-referenced and hyperlinked in appropriate client communication. So for Aviva Wealth, we signpost to them from our customers' annual statements. We actually provide a web page from which customers and advisors can then search for the report or reports on the particular funds they're invested in, or funds that they might be interested in investing in. Because of course you can look at them, as part of your overall research of the fund universe that's available to you. And once you select the reports on the website, they pull back in a PDF format. And they can be, saved down and shared as you see appropriate. Now, given the topic of fund level climate data is relatively new for both customers and advisors, really, we in Aviva Wealth have produced a guide to support understanding of what the reports are telling you. And there will be a link provided as part of the resources associated with this podcast. So what is this climate data and that we include in the reports? Well, there are a few different metrics, and I'll briefly touch on a couple of them. So the first one we show is something that's referred to as total greenhouse gas emissions, or total GHG, sometimes referred to. That looks at the total size of a fund and what that fund invests in, and then it calculates the level of emissions that are generated by that fund, given its size and given its investments. It can be quite an interesting piece of data, but it's not actually that useful for customers and advisors. Given that it's heavily influenced by the fund size, it doesn't enable comparability between different funds. But it is an important starting point, because a following metric that we produce is something that's known as economic carbon intensity, the acronym being ECI. It's also often referred to as carbon footprint. And essentially, this metric takes that total greenhouse gas emissions data, but it expresses it in the sense of per £1,000,000 invested. And that's really useful because then you can actually look at different funds side by side and see what their economic carbon intensity or carbon footprint is, based on, £1,000,000 invested. It gives that comparability opportunity. Now, there is other data that we cover in each report, but it probably takes us into too much detail for today's session. What I would leave you with is one suggestion. If you want to learn more, take a look at Aviva's Guide to Climate-Related Disclosure Reports. You can search for it on Google. There will also be a link to it, as I said earlier, in the resources section for this podcast. We've tried to make the guide customer friendly and advisor friendly. It's one guide, it's not two different guides for the two different audiences, but we try to walk through the different areas of what each report shows, and explain exactly what each metric is telling you, and sort of explain it in terms that you can hopefully have a conversation with your customers about. I'll leave it there for today. Thanks again to Lee and Ellie.
That was so great, wasn't it? Thanks so much to James for joining us. Loved hearing more about the details of his work. I think that there's really useful information for advisors here.
Yeah, really great. Okay, so James has covered the mechanics of the TCFD for product reporting brilliantly, but there's a really important nuance here that we need to highlight for financial advisors. When people see a carbon footprint number, and that's the economic carbon intensity figure, it looks incredibly objective and authoritative. But I think the danger is treating this figure as the whole story.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad that you've brought this up. It's really important for advisors to understand this. The carbon footprint, or ECI in its technical name, is useful, I agree, but it's so blunt as a metric used in isolation. And what I mean by this is that a high number shouldn't automatically mean bad, and a low number won't automatically mean good. So to explain that, we have to remember that when looking at this, that some of the most compelling opportunities in sustainable investment come from companies that may actually be the high emitters today, but they've got credible science-aligned plans to decarbonise. So if you look at just the footprint, you end up with screening out the entire universe of transition opportunities, which is a problem for clients who actually want to drive sustainability outcomes, not just hold a low carbon portfolio on paper.
And this is where I think advisors can add real value for their clients. Yes, you can use ECI to compare funds and even calculate a client's proportionate contribution to emissions. James's point about working out a client's share of the footprint is absolutely spot on. But a footprint alone tells you nothing about strategy, stewardship, governance, or whether the manager is allocating capital to firms that are improving. That context lives in the narrative around the fund, the transition plan, and to some extent how the manager is engaging.
Yeah, and to add to that point, I think that we should also acknowledge here that the regulatory shift that's happening around data at the moment. So the TCFD has been absorbed into the IFRS S1 and S2. The IFRS refers to the International Financial Reporting Standards, and the S1 and the S2 are the International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB. That's their first two foundational standards that set global benchmarks for sustainability related financial disclosures. So the structure for those is similar to the TCFD. So that's governance, strategy, risk management, metrics and targets. And the UK is adopting a slightly modified version as UK Sustainability Reporting Standards, shortened nicely to SRS, which will then feed into the FCA's is wider SDR regime. So the S1 is for general sustainability, requiring reporting on all material sustainability risks and opportunities affecting enterprise value. And the S2 is all about climate related reporting. So investors and advisors are still seeing and are still going through this evolution and mainstreaming now. And I think the mainstreaming is going to mean that the quantity and quality of data coming through is going to be very high and aligned with a global baseline. So it's great news.
Great stuff, and that's an important explainer. And I'd like to add a further practical takeaway. Entity level reporting is also really useful for clients, especially for clients that you deal with who wish to align with values. The entity level report tells you how the fund management firm is aligning with climate transition, not just the product. And that matters when you're trying to understand credibility. If the firm doesn't have the governance, the strategy, and the risk processes in place, it's very hard for the products to be meaningful. And bringing it right back again to those all important client conversations, there are portfolios where focusing on lowest emitting funds makes complete sense. For a client who wants strict values-based alignment, say avoiding fossil fuels entirely, ECI is a genuine tool. It gives you a metric to screen and build a portfolio according to the client's preferences. But again, you need to pair that with an understanding of what the fund actually does. A low footprint fund could be low simply because it avoids heavy industries entirely, not because it's driving any real change.
I think that's such an important point. Values-led investing is not the same as transition-led investing. One is about alignment and the other's about improvement. And advisors need the confidence to explain both because, as James said, the data is there now. But unless you pair the numbers with context, I think that you risk missing the growth potential in transition funds like the SDR improvers label funds and genuine system level value in engagement led strategies.
Yeah, and of course, the irony is if clients want their money to contribute to decarbonisation, excluding all high emitting companies outright removes them from the very space where change needs to happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's super interesting. So let's quickly sum up on this before moving on again. Know your client fully from the start. It's understand their financial, their sustainability or values related preferences, and then use all the numbers, but don't let the numbers drive the whole decision. Understand what's behind them, what's missing, and where the opportunities really sit.
Great. Okay, time to move on. And to kick off the new year with some actual positivity, not the forced January gym positivity kind, we wanted to bring in someone who genuinely radiates enthusiasm for learning and professional growth. Rich Cooper from LIBF is absolutely that person. If we were going to bottle New Year energy for the financial services profession, it would basically be a bottle of Rich. He's been a huge supporter of the Accord Initiative. He's a
Yeah,
highly respected member of our advisory group. And of course, he's the Business Development and Accreditation Manager at LIBF, part of the Walbrook Institute, as well as a Chartered Fellow of both the LIBF and the PFS. Now,
amazing.
Rich doesn't just talk about lifelong learning, he lives it. So let's hear his thoughts. And then Ellie and I will come back with a few reflections of our own, because this really is the perfect theme to start the year.
So thanks, Leonelli, for asking me to be on Accord Talks and to share some insights that help financial professionals deliver exceptional value and good outcomes for clients. I mean, today you've asked me to talk a little bit about lifelong learning, which I think is a cornerstone of professional excellence that builds that continuing client trust. Now, we all work in a sector that never stands still. Continuous development, I don't think is optional. I think it's essential. It's why that after 40 years of being in the profession, I still look to learn and develop my own knowledge, skills, and behaviours. And I've just achieved my second fellowship, which I'm really proud about because this is one with LIBF, which is all about giving back to the profession and as well as being a fellow with the PFS. But I'm also currently taking another level 6 qualification. Now, I don't have to, but I choose to because I want to be seen to be an expert in the fields that I work in. And LIBF, we're part of the Walbrook Institute in London, and it's learning's at the forefront of everything that we do. And we've been doing that for over 140 years. But we believe in the power of learning to create opportunities. Education, I believe, is the key to unlocking potential, not just for you, but for your own personal growth, but also the potential of the value that you can add back into clients. And you become an invaluable asset to what you actually do within your world, within your bubble. So why does it matter? So why does lifelong learning matter for the professionals that we have within the profession? LIBF, and me personally, I believe, is the foundation for success. It gives you credibility and expertise. Now, it's not just about regulations and products. We all know that markets evolve rapidly, but staying informed ensures you remain a trusted advisor and a credible voice within the industry and within the profession. As I said, it gives you that career growth and adaptability. It enables you to embrace change, whether it's new technology, shifting client expectations, or emerging trends. It keeps your career future ready. And one of the skills, perhaps, is to read the market. It's not about what's coming today, it's what's coming in the next 1, 3, and 5 years, and making sure that you're prepared for it and being seen that you're an expert or that you're knowledgeable in those fields, because that builds not just trust for you, but also trust for your clients as well. Now, we're never going to be far away when it comes to learning, to talking about compliance and risk management, because that, again, is quite fundamental to the profession that we're working. But knowledge isn't just power, it's also protection. Now, understanding those regulatory updates safeguards you, your firm, and your clients from unnecessary risk and avoiding foreseeable harm. And beyond that compliance piece, it builds confidence, satisfaction, and it opens doors to networking and other opportunities within the professional community that you didn't know were there until you actually explore them. And from your client's perspective, it's even more important. Lifelong learning, it gives your clients access to advice that's current and relevant. Now, they expect clients that reflect today's reality, but lifelong learning ensures your advice is accurate, compliant, forward thinking, and ultimately leads to tailored solutions and good outcomes for clients. Now, informed professionals, we know, can design strategies that align, I suppose, solutions with their unique goals that the clients have, leading to those stronger, not only financial results, but really good outcomes. And finally, it builds that really important thing in any relationship, is that trust and transparency. When clients see that we as advisors are investing in our own development, it signals an element of professionalism and ethical standards that builds confidence in every interaction you have with them. Now, I champion this and the LIBF champion this because we believe that informed advisors create informed clients, and that drives better decisions for everyone. That leads to those really good outcomes that we're all striving for, and is really important in terms of the solutions that we now give today. So let's look at a couple of examples of where lifelong learning matters and where it can make a difference. And now, with being on obviously Accord Talks, I'm going to, I suppose, just a shameless little plug for you on this one. So let's look at the ESG Accord Academy's Sustainability in the Investment Advice Process course. Now, as I said previously, with client expectations, regulation, and investment strategies evolving at a pace, staying ahead of that curve is essential. Now, this particular course is a free accredited course, formally recognized and accredited by LIBF. There's 10 modules, and it's designed to give advisors, paraplanners, compliance teams, and any other support staff practical tools for integrating that sustainability into advice. So why does that matter? Well, because ESG and sustainability are no longer fringe topics. Advisors need to know their client preferences, and when clients discuss them, I think they would expect their advisors to actually understand them and to be able to explain them confidently and effectively. Now, this particular course is a bit of a game changer in my belief, because those that have already undertaken the course have said so. It's not me saying so, it's the people that have taken the course that have said so. They say that it's helped them to confidently discuss ESG, understanding the suitability disclosure requirements, or SDR as we keep it for short, but also avoid the pitfalls that you have within greenwashing. It's short, it's structured, it's practical. quizzes and templates that reinforce the key concepts. It really supports the consumer duty obligations and helps advisors and their firms deliver those compliant, client-focused outcomes. And what I'm pleased to see about this is that actually over 90% of the participants that have taken the course, again, rated it highly relevant to their role, and most said they felt more confident on advising on sustainability. And isn't that our goal of what we're trying to achieve ultimately? So whether you're an advisor, compliant professional, or in business development, it closes the gap between regulation and reality, giving clarity, confidence, and actionable steps. And that's really what we're looking for from any learning intervention. And that's what life learning is about, isn't it? Have I got actionable steps that improve the outcomes that I'm looking for? And the best part, and this is what I like about it, it's free, it's accredited, and it's ready to use. So that's the first one. The second one, again, this is a little bit of a plug for LIBF, and this is something that we've just launched last month in December, and it's our new apprenticeship program, and this is really exciting. Now, we know financial services needs new talent, and apprenticeships will offer one of the most effective ways to build it. Now, we're delighted to be providing firms with a simple, fully managed route to attract, train, and retain the next generation of financial advisors and support staff. And it also enables you to upskill your existing employees. They don't have to be new to actually go on an apprenticeship program. You can actually use apprenticeships to upskill your existing employees. Now, our new apprenticeship pathways make starting or progressing a career in financial advice easier. What learners ultimately gain a recognised level 3, level 4, or level 6 qualification, but it's a structured route to progress that learning. Now, from entry-level roles through to paraplanning or fully qualified advisor status, each pathway is designed to give learners the confidence, skills, and technical knowledge they need to thrive in the sector. Now, what's exciting about this initiative is that both the employers and learners are fully supported from day one, giving them everything that they need for that seamless apprenticeship journey or learning pathway, as we would call it. And the beauty is, we're the only awarding body that is also an apprenticeship training provider, and we have been for a number of years. We've always had our level 6, so the degree apprenticeship program that we've used within banking and finance. And we truly understand the roles that people undertake, and it's effectively a one-stop solution. So we're able to add value all into that learning train. So I'm really excited to see how this one progresses, and I'm sure there'll be a link to this after the podcast in the notes that I always see when I actually listen to these podcasts. There's always that additional information on that one. So just to sort of close this, I suppose, down, lifelong learning isn't just about meeting standards. It's about setting them, I think. And at LIBF, not only do we provide the qualifications and apprenticeships, but we also help to provide the tools, resources, and accredited programs that empowers you to stay ahead. And the beauty is, I love January because it's the start of the year, and you can think, where do we go? Where do I go with my own learning? Where do I go with the learning for the people that trust me as their employer to actually take that forward? So whether it's that you commit to do the the Accord Academy's Sustainability and the Investment Advice Process course, or you look at our qualifications, or you look at the apprenticeships, it's a good time to think about it. And that's why I love Januaries. Now, the important thing from my point of view is, why is it important? And again, I'm just going to two things I'm going to say on this one. It's because when you invest in learning, you invest in the trust, growth, and success, not just for yourself, but also more importantly for your clients. And that's the key for me in terms of learning and lifelong learning. Does it add value to you as an individual? And does it add value to the most important thing in our relationships, which I believe is always the client, and lead to those good client outcomes? So Lee and Ellie, I mean, thank you for letting me join you today and having a little spiel about things that I really love, and that is about that lifelong learning opportunities. And for those that are listening, keep learning and keep making a difference.
Thanks so much to Rich for taking the time to join us and sharing his views. I would like to thank the LIBF for providing learning and CPD accreditation for our courses on the Accord Academy. I always feel energised after listening to Rich, particularly the point about lifelong learning being a cornerstone of professionalism. That really resonates. And I suppose for me, learning over the last year did take a slightly different turn. I've been diving into history books, which is a lifelong interest of mine. Partly, I think, because understanding past mistakes is underrated, as well as being hugely valuable, and partly because it's actually fascinating. History teaches us that all too often pushing ahead with a goal or strategy without being challenged on whether it's the right course often leads to failure. So I'm a big fan of collaboration and collective idea development. And of course, I've been playing the drums more and more, lots of practicing, and that's a complete balance to all the compliance and regulatory stuff.
Yeah, I love that. As I said this to Rich when we recorded with him, I love how you can hear Rich is smiling all the way through when he's talking about his learning. And that's great. It's the passion. So, yeah, for my personal reflection, I'm quite similar to you, Lee, for the 2025 learning. Although without the drums, 2025 was actually the first year in quite a long while where I didn't sit formal qualifications. Instead, I focused on reading regulatory papers, research papers, and lots of books, which was great. Many of the books were about sustainability and economics related, but I also challenged myself in 2025 to read fiction again as well, which was great. So a few books I think might be nice to share that spring to mind were the Positive Tipping Points book by Tim Lenton. I mentioned this before on one of the podcasts, I think. This one is just brilliant for understanding where systemic shifts can actually happen. So it's great. I also read The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. Very hard to get through that first chapter, but yes, it's honestly one of the most ambitious explorations, I think, of climate risk and policy that I've ever read. It's very interesting. Also, Value of a Whale by Adrienne Buller. That's an interesting critique of the marketization of nature, which I found very interesting. And then also worth a mention, I think, springing to mind is the May Contain Lies by Alex Edmonds. I enjoyed that. It was a very short must read on evidence bias and how easily we all get misled. So what struck me about Rich's commentary that he shared and linking brilliantly to his message, I think, is that learning doesn't have to be an exam or even a new qualification. Sometimes it's sitting with new ideas, letting them change how you think, and bringing all that back into the work that we do with advisors and our clients across the industry.
Yeah, great. Actually, just picking up on your references to that book May Contain Lines, that reminded me that I did read a book called The Silent State by Heather Brooke. And that is a real analysis of the way PR spin can turn facts potentially into lies from all areas of government. So that's a good recommendation, that one, if you want to get cross
put it
and
in
angry.
the show notes. Yep. We'll put all the links in our show notes, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. It's so important to be aware.
Yeah. Great. So I think Rich is right, really, getting back to Rich's comments. Continuous development isn't optional in this profession. Everything changes. Regulation, client expectations, technology, the market. The minute you stop learning, you're already behind.
And the great thing is that learning now is so accessible because it comes in so many forms. So whether that's structured qualification, CPD, micro courses, podcasts such as this one, of course, or just reading widely, it all contributes to being more informed, make yourself more adaptable, and ultimately more valuable for clients and the people around us that we work with.
Yeah, so if we're setting intentions for the year, I'd say be curious, be open, and don't underestimate what small, consistent learning habits can do for your confidence and your practice.
Agreed. And with that, a huge thanks again to Rich and to James for joining us. It's been a really inspiring way to start the year.
And with that, I think we are bringing everything in accord.
Yeah, that need to be said, didn't it? Okay, so if we've piqued your interest to learn more, we've added all the links from today into the show notes for you.
And always, If the podcast has raised any thoughts or questions in your mind, we would really love to hear from you.
Yep, and don't forget to subscribe to Accord Talks so that you never miss an episode. And if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover, please drop us a message via the website or LinkedIn.
Thanks for joining us, and a big thank you to our Accord Initiative partners who make it possible for us to spend time producing these podcasts for you.
Yeah, we've loved it. We hope you have too.